The happy face?
You probably, yeah, you probably don't need a whole lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, how often are you going to do, you know, colon, hyphens, pound symbol to describe somebody who just got braces?
More often than not, I'm not going to do the emoticon. I'm just going to say whatever it is that... Like, I'm not going to show an angry face. I'm just going to say, fuck you.
That's what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I think I'm the only person who uses complete sentences and punctuation when text messaging.
It's okay, I do too.
Do you?
When my brother texts me, I have to read it out loud to understand what he's trying to say.
Alright, you ready? Today, I'm going to give my presentation on Vikings and why they are awesome, more or less. Before I get started, I really want to make sure that you all know that this is going to be a very biased presentation. This is not objective whatsoever. I freaking love Vikings. So keep that in mind when you're listening to what I have to say. A lot of things that you've heard about the Vikings are not necessarily true. You've probably heard stuff about how Vikings are these frothing, unwashed barbarians from the north who only rape and pillage and on and on. There's a lot more to them than that, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about that today. A lot of misconceptions about Vikings come from what was the 18th century Romantic period in Sweden. It was an idea of Romanticism where they basically reappropriated the idea of a Viking as this romantic thing, this noble, savage kind of guy. And also a frothing, unwashed barbarian. Barbarians, Vikings, were actually a extremely well-developed people. They had a complex system of government and social structure, which dealt a lot with this idea of reciprocity, back and forth. They had an egalitarian treatment of all their citizens and a deep respect for their women as well. Their system of mythology was complex, very rich, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to tell you anything about their mythology. I don't have time. I could speak for a whole week about it. Not the thing I'm talking about today. What I am talking about today is the Viking influence on modern media. Specifically, their influence on video games, comic books, movies, and even literary concepts. Before we get started, what is a Viking? This is important. The term Viking commonly denotes the shipborne warriors and traders who originated in Scandinavia and raided the coasts of the British Isles and mainland Europe as far east as the Volga River in Russia from 793 to 1066 AD. This is known as the Viking Age. Very boring on paper, but actually pretty damn cool. The method of analysis that I'm going to be using to examine all this stuff is specifically the examination of the Viking influence on our modern media and the less obvious influences that it had on the concepts we commonly use in our media. If you learn nothing else from my presentation today, I want you to take away a very important bit. You're going to see a lot. Vikings did not have horned helmets. None of them. It didn't happen. This is another part of the 18th century Swedish romantic ideal of barbarians. Actual barbarians, the Vikings, barbarians, sorry. Actual Viking helmets look a little bit more like this. This is a representation, a replication of a helmet found at a place called Sanju, which was an archaeological dig site they found, which was a nearly completely intact burial site for several Vikings. There was all sorts of stuff there, all sorts of grave goods. You got helmets, armor, weapons, that kind of thing. It's one of the best things we've ever found relating to Vikings. Viking influence on modern media. We've got video games. This is Odin as he was depicted in Final Fantasy. Odin was the chief of the Norse pantheon, the Viking pantheon. Here he's represented on his horse Sleipnir, who is supposed to have 8 legs and only has 6 in this picture. It's a video game. This is Valkyrie profile. Valkyries were battle maidens sent down from heaven, Asgard, or Valhalla actually, to take the battle dead back to Valhalla for the gods. This is Too Human, which is coming out soon for Xbox 360. It is a complete retelling of the Norse mythology in a sci-fi setting. The main character who you play is named Balder, who was one of the gods in the mythology. His full name was Balder the Beautiful. He was one of Odin's sons. Comics are well represented with Viking mythology and lore. This is the mighty Thor and his ultimate counterpart, different series, same character. Silver Age icon. This goes back quite a number of years as well. There's also normal comic strip stuff like Hagar the Horrible. That's the largest picture I can find of that guy. But Hagar the Horrible has been around since 1973. Viking interest has not just started. It's been around for a number of years. Something you may all be way more familiar with than video games or comics are movies. Viking influence on cinema. Pathfinder is a movie that just came out that deals with Vikings. It is kind of based on a real story where Vikings came to North America long before Christopher Columbus. This actually happened. Pathfinder is the telling of the legend about how they came and were fought off by the Native Americans, which also happened. It's also horrible. Don't see it. Yeah, okay. We have been with this. No warned helmets. Much better movie, slightly more accurate, is The 13th Warrior, which was based on a Michael Crichton book called The Eaters of the Dead, which was actually based on a real historical event, where this guy named Ahmad ibn Fadlan ibn al-Abbas ibn Rashid ibn Hamad was actually banished from Baghdad. He became an ambassador to the north and met with Vikings. The actual historical account is really boring to read. It reads like a trade invoice, but he did meet up with Vikings, they did interact, and a lot of stories have been taken on from that. What's going on? The subtle influences in modern media come from the overt influences, direct representations of characters like Thor and Odin and that kind of thing. But I think the best example of how subtle influences hit our modern media comes in a guy named Egil Skallagrimsson. Now, this guy is pretty much my favorite Viking ever. He is a real person. Right? He was a great anti-hero of the Viking Age. He was known as an oathbreaker, a slayer, a berserker. He's known to have killed 20 to 30 men in single combat, all of them against him. He's this great hero, but he's really a bastard. He defied this king and all sorts of stuff like that. He's this great anti-hero figure. He's represented in legend and real historical recountings. He's also known as a sorcerer and a skald, which is kind of like a bard who kicks ass. What this means, this guy, he's so famous, he's in a lot of sagas, is that he has a great deal of influence over our modern representations of anti-heroes. Characters who would be a hero except they have some certain flaw. They're not Superman. But characters who are like Han Solo, V from V for Vendetta, Wolverine, Malcolm Reynolds, Tyler Durden, Riddick, even Captain Jack Sparrow. All of these, I believe, have a little bit of Egil Skallagrimsson in them. It's a representation of this kind of ridiculous character. Putting all of it together, I believe that the Vikings contribute a great deal to all of our media, and in turn, because of their contributions to our media, also directly to our culture. I think that we've taken a lot from their culture and mythology, and we should take even more, because there is a deep, untapped well of stuff we have not even gotten to. And I highly suggest that all of you go out, buy a book of Viking mythology, read it, it's really cool stuff.